We're back. This is the final video, and you're going to love this one. Congratulations on watching the 3 previous videos. The fact that you're here tells me that you're serious about your English and IELTS studies, and I really love helping students who are serious about improving their English. For years, I used to teach English to students who were never really interested in becoming better English speakers. It was just one subject for them that they needed to take. That's the reason why I started to specialize in teaching IELTS. I know students who take the IELTS exam are motivated to do well because they need a good result for their studies or work or migration. Whatever reason you're taking IELTS for, don't give up. You will reap the rewards of your hard work. This is the last video in this series, and before I focus on the topic of grammar, I want to apply some things we've learned in my previous video regarding word patterns. Remember, it's not good enough just to learn something in theory. You need to apply what I teach you to your writing. Let me show you a Facebook comment I received for one of my videos. I'm not showing you this comment to show off. I'm showing you this so that I can help you apply what I taught you in the previous video. This person wrote, "Thank you very much to help us." Firstly, I want to say that I appreciate all positive comments, so please keep writing them. I'm not here to criticize you for your bad English or pick fault with what you wrote. I'm here to show you your mistakes and then correct them so that you can improve. I believe that this is going to help you. So let's get back to that sentence. Thank you very much to help us. What is wrong with this sentence? The person is using the to plus base verb pattern, to help, after the verb thank. However, what is the correct pattern for thank? As you can see from Macmillan Dictionary, after the word thank, you normally put the object whom you want to thank. Then after that, you put the preposition. You don't put the to plus base verb pattern. And of course, as I mentioned before, after a preposition, you would put either a noun or a verb ing. So the correct sentence should be, "Thank you very much for helping us." Here's another comment that uses the word pattern correctly. This person wrote, "Thank you so much for sharing these tips." This person used the preposition for and then the verb ing after that. So the pattern he used after thank is correct. The preposition for and the verb ing. Through this, I hope you see that what I teach is very practical. If you understand what I taught you regarding word patterns, you will start to go to the dictionary to check the word patterns you're using, and then you will start to change the way you write and speak. It's hard work going to the dictionary to check your word patterns, but it's necessary if you want to improve. Okay, let's start with the grammar teaching. Let's take a look at the official IELTS band descriptors for writing. For band 7, there are 2 main things you need to take note of. Firstly, you need to use a variety of complex structures. This means that you use conjunctions and other more complex grammar structures like relative clauses. But I want to focus on the second important area in this video. Produces frequent error-free sentences. What this means is that most of your sentences need to have no grammar mistakes. That's a huge challenge because for many students, most of their sentences contain grammar mistakes. But that's a level you need to reach in order to get a band 7 for the grammar portion. A lot of students have trouble gaining band 7 for writing overall because they fail to get 7 for the grammar. If you get 7 for task response, 7 for coherence and cohesion, 7 for lexical resource, but only a 6 for grammatical range and accuracy, your overall writing score will be 6.5 and not 7. Therefore, it's really important to eliminate as many grammar mistakes as possible if you're aiming for a 7.0 for writing. Even though eliminating grammar mistakes is important, very little IELTS teaching focuses on this area simply because getting students to correct their grammar mistakes is extremely difficult. I've taught English and IELTS for 10 years, and I know how difficult it is for my students to improve in this area. They take weeks, if not months, to avoid repeating the same mistakes. The truth is, it's very common for students to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again, even though they've learned it many times and even though I pointed that same mistake out many times. That's just the way it is. When learning English, most students didn't have a very good English teacher. Nobody corrected them for many years. In fact, they probably learned some very bad grammar from their teachers. As a result, they've gotten used to writing and speaking English with a lot of grammar mistakes. Because it's become a habit to speak and write using bad grammar, a few lessons aren't going to dramatically improve their grammar. This video won't be able to teach you everything about grammar. That would take a video of 100 or over 1,000 hours. There's just so many things to learn with regards to grammar. But for now, I just want to point out the top 10 grammar mistakes with real examples from my students. The first mistake involves grammar mistakes related to word class. When I say word class, I'm mainly referring to noun, verb, adjective, and adverb. Mistakes occur when students don't use the correct word class. For example, they may use a verb when a noun is required or vice versa. One of my students wrote, "One of the results of this is the loss of privacy." The mistake here is that the student used the word lost, which is an adjective or a verb in the past simple tense or past participle form, when the noun loss is needed. Try and find out what's wrong with this sentence. This policy by the government greatly affected the demand for cars. I won't give you the answer right now. At the end of each of the 10 grammar mistakes, I will write one sentence that contains a mistake by a student of mine. Correcting this sentence will be your homework. Get the free document that comes with this video. In it will be all the 10 sentences and also a link to get the video of me correcting all the 10 sentences. So here's the sentence with the mistake again. This policy by the government greatly affected the demand for cars. Don't forget to download the free document to get the answers for this question and the 9 others after this. Let's go to the second mistake. It's about subject-verb agreement. This is one of the most common English mistakes and yet also one of the easiest to correct. Still, many students make this mistake over and over again. This is a mistake that often occurs in the present simple tense. Students either use the non-S version of the verb when the S version is needed or vice versa. Basically, the rule for the present simple tense is this. If the subject is a he, she, or it, the verb takes the S version. If not, it doesn't take the S version. That's all. It's that simple. Yet students tend to make a lot of these mistakes. Here's a student's mistake. Vehicles causes pollution. The mistake is that because vehicles is plural, it's a they, you don't need an S behind cause. It should be vehicles cause pollution. Now, what's wrong with this sentence? Playing tennis gives people a lot of pleasure. This is your homework. Remember to download the document to get the answer. On to the third grammar mistake. This has to do with tense. There are many tenses in English. Depending on how you define a tense, some people would say that there are up to 12 tenses. It's really important for students to have a good grasp of not just how to form each tense, but also the meaning of the various tenses and when to use them. Almost every English sentence will contain a verb in a tense. Therefore, if you don't know your tenses and when to use them, every sentence will probably have a mistake. One of the most common mistakes related to tenses is using the past simple tense when you need to use the present simple tense instead. This normally occurs in writing task 2, where most of the time you'll be using the present simple tense. The other common mistake is in writing task 1 and in speaking, when students use the present simple tense when they may need to use the past simple tense instead. Here's a mistake by my student. Many people believed that it is better to teach a new language to students when they are in primary school. What's wrong with this sentence? The student shouldn't have used the past simple tense believed. People still believe this, and so there's no need to use the past simple tense. It should be, many people believe that it is better to teach a new language to students when they are in primary school. Now, correct this mistake for your homework and find the answer in the free document. When I was trying to find the product I needed, I slip and fall. Let's go to the fourth mistake. This mistake involves understanding the difference between a noun that is countable and a noun that is uncountable. A countable noun is one which you can count using numbers. Countable nouns have plural forms. For example, pen is countable, so you can say 2 pens. An uncountable noun cannot be counted using numbers, and you usually don't have plural forms. You don't say 1 salt or 2 salts, because salt is not countable. The mistake students make is that they don't know if the noun is countable or not. Very often, a noun is uncountable, yet they treat it as a countable noun. This is a sentence by a student of mine. Teachers can give advices to students regarding their career choice. Advice is uncountable, not countable. Therefore, you can't use the plural form with advice. The correct answer should be, teachers can give advice to students regarding their career choice. Correct this sentence for your homework. I bought 2 equipments in the shop last week. The fifth mistake relates to using plural nouns. We learned that when nouns are countable, it is possible to put an S behind them. A very common mistake is that students do not put an S behind a countable noun when they need to do so. There are basically 2 reasons why you need to use an S. Firstly, if you're talking about more than one of that noun, you need to use an S. Secondly, and more importantly, when you're talking about something in general, you need to use the S if the noun is countable. Students tend to forget to do this. What is wrong with this sentence? It is important for employer to treat employee with respect. As employer and employee are countable nouns, and we are talking about employers and employees in general, we need to use the plural version of those words. So the correct sentence should be, it is important for employers to treat employees with respect. Here's your homework. It's based on an advertisement I saw in Singapore. It says, miracle does happen. Remember to get your answer through downloading the document. 6. Punctuation. This punctuation mistake involves confusing conjunctions and adverbs. The tables all contain linking words, but the way we use the conjunction linking words and adverb linking words is different, especially the punctuation. When using conjunctions, you need to use it to connect 2 clauses within a sentence. When you use adverbs, you normally use it to begin a new sentence. What is wrong with this sentence by one of my students? The government has invested a lot of money in educating the public. So the people in the country these days understand the importance of keeping healthy. The mistake is that so is used as a conjunction here. And you don't use it to begin a sentence. You use it to connect 2 clauses within a sentence. Therefore, there's no full stop before so. If you want to put a full stop after public, you should use an adverb instead, like therefore, to begin the new sentence. Now, for your homework, what's wrong with this sentence? The death penalty deters people from committing crime, and it also keeps the country safer. 7th, modal verbs. Modal verbs are words like will, would, may, might, shall, should, can, could, must. A modal verb is also called a modal auxiliary verb. Auxiliary means helping. Therefore, these verbs are helpers. Who do they help? They help the main verbs. Modal verbs do not give the main meaning. They modify the meaning of the main verb. For example, if you say, I can play tennis, The modal verb is can. Here it means ability. And the main verb is play. The main action is play. Can just modifies the meaning of play. It means that I have the ability to play tennis. You need to remember two things with modals. Number one, as a helping verb, modal verbs come with another verb, the main verb with the main meaning. Modal verbs do not exist by itself. In a sentence, you can't say I can by itself. It makes no sense. You need to use another verb for it to make sense. I can play. The second thing you must remember is that the other verb is in base form. That is, the form without ed, ing, and s behind it, and without to before it. It's the basic form. In the sentence, the main verb is in base form. For example, I can play tennis. It's wrong to say I can playing tennis, or I can played tennis, or I can plays tennis, or I can to play tennis. The base form of the verb is the form without the ed, ing, s, or to. What is wrong with this sentence? The people should to visit local museums more in order to learn about their country's history. The mistake is that a base verb should come after the modal verb should. Instead, the student used to visit. There shouldn't be a to there. The correct sentence would be, the people should visit local museums more in order to learn more about their country's history. Here's your homework. Figure out what's wrong with this sentence. The government will not able to reduce the crime rate. The eighth mistake relates to articles. Articles is one of the most difficult grammar areas for a student to grasp. Most students never really perfect this area because the rules to using articles properly are complex and there are many exceptions to the rules. There are three types of articles. Number one, indefinite article, which is a or an. This is used before a singular countable noun that is not specific, it's one of many, or that is being mentioned for the first time. For example, I'm going to the supermarket to buy a can of Coke. Number two, definite article, which is the. The definite article is used to talk about something specific that both the reader, listener, and the writer, speaker know. Please pass me the pen. Both parties know the specific pen that's being mentioned. Or the definite article is also used when there's only one of something. Finally, it's used when you're referring to something mentioned earlier. Lastly, there is the zero article, which is actually where there's no article used at all. This is used when you're talking about a category or group in general. For example, laptops are very cheap. Here you do not use any article before laptops. Or it's used before abstract nouns such as feelings or ideas. Democracy is the best form of government. This is a short presentation on articles. And of course there's more to this, but for now, this will do. What's wrong with this sentence? People who purchase a car should be made to get insurance policy. The mistake here is in not using the indefinite article "an" before insurance policy. The noun policy is countable and we are not talking about any specific policy, so the article "an" should be used. The correct sentence would be, people who purchase a car should be made to get an insurance policy. This is your homework. What's wrong with this sentence? This policy would reduce number of criminal acts in the city. Let's go to mistake number 9, and this relates to the passive voice. Understanding the passive voice takes a bit of effort, and many students make a lot of mistakes related to this area. Confusing the active and passive voice and making mistakes related to this could affect one's grammar score more than normal, because the worst grammar mistakes are those that inhibit communication and understanding. When you confuse the active and passive voice, or do not form your sentences correctly, the meaning of your sentence often becomes unclear. As with almost all grammar points, there's so much to teach. But let me go through this very quickly. The sentence, John hit Jack, is an active voice. This occurs when the subject is the doer of the action, while the object is the receiver of the action. However, We can change it into passive voice by putting the receiver of the action in the subject position. When you do this, that is, when the receiver of the action goes to the subject position, the verb becomes be plus verb in past participle form. Note that the be in the passive voice is in the same tense as the verb in the active voice. That is, in the active voice, hit is in past simple tense. Therefore, be in the past simple tense is was. And the verb hit in the past participle form is still hit. That's why you get was hit. Take note that it is optional to put the by plus the doer of the action, the by John, after the verb. Now, if all this is a bit too confusing, just watch this portion of the video again. The passive voice is used when you want to focus on the receiver of the action and not the doer of the action, or if the doer of the action is unknown, thus you can't mention it. For academic IELTS takers, the process, which is the third type of task 1, requires you to understand and use the passive voice. Here's a mistake from my student. The problem is that a lot of tourist attractions visited only by foreigners and not locals. What's wrong with this? The problem is that the passive is not formed correctly. You need to put the be plus the past participle. Here the student has forgotten to use the be. The correct sentence should be, the problem is that a lot of tourist attractions are visited only by foreigners and not locals. This is your homework sentence. This is happened more times than it should. We're on to the last grammar mistake. This relates to sentence structure. This could involve a lot of areas, but I'm going to just focus on one of them. It's what I call missing subject and or verb in compound sentences. Sometimes sentences don't make sense and students don't realize this. Take, for example, this sentence by one of my students. People become lonely and less communication with others. In this sentence, people become lonely is understandable. However, after the end, there's the noun phrase less communication with others. There's no subject or verb after the end. And that's okay, as long as the subject and the verb for the second part of the sentence is people become also. For example, people become lonely and people become less communication with others. But as you can see, it doesn't make sense at all if the subject and the verb of the second part of the sentence is people become. If so, you need to state your subject and verb. What this student is probably trying to say is this. People become lonely and they have less communication with others. Because the they is the same as people, you don't really need to repeat it. So it could also be written, people become lonely and have less communication with others. Therefore, it's important not to leave out the subject and or verb in the second part of the sentence if it's different from the first part. Here's another mistake by one of my students. These tourists are handed in to the police and charge them with hefty fines. What's wrong with this? In the second part of the sentence, the subject is missing. Again, that's fine as long as the subject is the same as the first part. These tourists are handed in to the police and these tourists charge them with hefty fines. This sentence doesn't make sense as the subject of the second part of the sentence shouldn't be these tourists, but it should be the police. Therefore, because the subject in the second part of the sentence is different from the subject in the first part, it should be clearly written like this. These tourists are handed in to the police, and the police charge them with hefty fines. Here's your homework. The radiation will cause harm to people's bodies and become cancerous. This completes the end of my list of the 10 most common grammar mistakes in IELTS. This is based on my 10 years of English and IELTS teaching. I still teach IELTS regularly and I see the same mistakes over and over again. It just proves to me that these are the most common grammar mistakes in IELTS. This 4-part video series is about to end. When I started this series, I didn't know how long the videos would last. This last video is very long and much longer than I expected. But the truth is that there's still so much more to say and teach. During my IELTS writing classes in Singapore, my students get more than 20 hours of solid teaching on IELTS writing. I've tried my best to summarize all of that in these 4 videos, but of course, there's so much more. I want to thank you all for staying to the end. Please download the document that comes with this video, as you get all the 10 sentences for you to correct and a link to get a video where I'll go through all the answers. You also get an updated essay checklist and a quiz on this video. If you're in Singapore and you've benefited from these 4 videos, you may be interested to find out more about my classes. I teach so much more than what I've covered in these 4 videos. I go much more in depth and you'll learn so much more. Just give me a call at 9768-1054 and I'll be glad to tell you more about my classes. Once again, thank you for watching these videos till the end. However, this is not the end of our communication. I will continue to email you with new videos and resources as I create them, so watch out for my emails. Lastly, I want you to do me a favor. I've spent hours creating these videos. It takes a lot of time to write out the script and then create them. I probably spent more than 30 hours on these 4 videos and I've given them to you for free. So if you appreciate what I've done, then I ask that you do something for me. Tomorrow, I'll be sending you an email and asking you what you thought of the 4 videos. If you've learned something, I would ask you to reply my email and let me know what you think of them and what you've learned from them. I would appreciate your feedback, and everyone who replies that email and tells me what they think of the videos will receive a special gift from me. So watch out for my email tomorrow. See you guys again soon.